Welcome once again to American Christian or Christian American. I'm Sean Legacy and I'm your host. If you haven't seen my videos before, I would encourage you to go back and see the first one. I will set some groundwork for you. Otherwise, you can still get a lot of what I'm saying. If you haven't subscribed yet, please join the family. And if you like this video, please press the like button. It helps the channel grow. There's a lot of things that we have to talk about on this channel. And so many people dismiss the topics that we have to talk about, but they can't be dismissed. History, when not looked at, is dismissed, repeats itself. And that's exactly what we're doing today. So I titled it, kind of had my title, Jim Crow 2.0. We're going to look at a video in a moment. Talks just about that. But I want to say that it is flabbergasting to me, or astounds me, that many people I talk to who voted Republican, and I am in the state of Kentucky presently. I'm born and raised in Minnesota, but I'm living in Kentucky, in Louisville, Kentucky. And the first thing that comes to mind is when people start attacking people like Nancy Pelosi and other people and saying how corrupt they are. Well, I'm not saying that there isn't corruption there. But when you say, what about Donald Trump? Then all of a sudden they make excuses. One of the most corrupt men that we've seen in a long time, at least with this much power. Donald Trump has become a disaster in many ways to many people living in this country. And Donald Trump is purely a racist, but he's also a power-hungry person, a person with an ego who likes to control things for himself. He surrounds himself with other people like Elon Musk, who have a history in white supremacy, stemming back to South Africa and his family. He's surrounded himself with big business people, and he also surrounds himself with evangelical Christian figures who in this country use God as an excuse for racism, use God as an excuse to segregate, use God as an excuse for their own power and control. God is real, and Christianity is a real thing from the Bible, but it has been distorted over the years for people's own power and greed. And so we have to separate the two. What is truly trying to please God and help other people, as opposed to people who are just singly out there trying to use Christianity, the Bible, as a basis for committing atrocities. Now, I granted, I will say there are a lot of people who are blind in these movements, but they're not innocent either, because we all have a responsibility to analyze what we're learning out of the Bible. When we don't do that, we just follow the crowd. We become just as guilty as anybody else. Maybe not with the same intent, or some will, but we just follow blindly instead of questioning what people are doing and why they're doing it. We have a lot of people, it's amazing to me how many excuses they make for what's going on. And the last thing I'm going to say is that with the No Kings protest, it's a good thing in many ways, yes, but it's interesting how many people want to get back to pre-Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump, yes, has brought up a lot of problems for many people, including white people, but they're not really addressing all the problems, because for African Americans and other people, the problems have not gone away ever. They've been more suppressed, under control to a point, and now just released back into a stronger emphasis to hurt African Americans and others, but they've never been where they should be, equality. So we don't mean to go back to pre-Trump, we need to go forward to after, post-Trump.
Anyone who says that we're not inching towards a Jim Crow 2.0 just hasn't read enough history. Jim Crow did not start with water fountains or seating on buses. It started with voter suppression and gerrymandering. At the end of the Civil War, 90% of Black people lived in the American South. And then came the Reconstruction Acts. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment made black people citizens, and the 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote. This now meant that black voters in many southern states were large parts of the electorate, and in places like Mississippi, they were the majority of voters. This did not sit well with white people. They determined not to live under what they called Negro domination. They determined to suppress the black vote to maintain white supremacy and their way of life. And they outlined that the battlefield was the ballot box. First, they maintained this through terror and intimidation. Then, they called constitutional conventions to make the illegal legal. So yes, we are back.
So as this video points out, Jim Crow didn't start with, say, water fountains that are out there. What it started was voter suppression. Anything you can do to make it more difficult for African Americans to vote. There are many states in this country which are trying to gerrymander the districts to break up black communities so they won't get representation. What is that? Racism. That's it. But they'll sit here and say that it's not. But they just go ahead and do it. You see, that's part of the problem of this country, that isn't even allowed. That those types of things can even be allowed. That our country really isn't set up on the concepts of freedom as they say it is. It was set up on white supremacy. We are moving backwards at a very rapid pace. Do I think it can get back to the 1960s? I think we're already there in some ways. And I think that we can get far worse. It just depends on when people start to stand up. Now we've got an election coming up later this year. Will people stand up? I think they will to a point. But the question is, a portion of those people who stand up and switch candidates, switch to a different party, will they first of all select a person from the other party, the Democratic Party, who is truly into changing things for all people? Or are they just trying to go back pre-Trump? Are they just simply voting in order because they don't like them touching their health care and they don't like them touching their Medicaid and Medicare? Or are they actually trying to improve things for all people? Now, granted, we need to get away from what Trump has done and restore some of the voting rights and everything else that's taking place. But we need to move far beyond this. I think there are a few more Caucasian people who are beginning to think about things like I am. And I don't know, I know so little compared to what the people, African Americans, have gone through this stuff. But I'm learning. And I think there are a few other people who are learning and willing to talk about things. But yet there are so many people out there who continue to carry on with this ridiculousness. Part of it is because those Caucasians who want power to control others, to be dominated by others. And it's not just that they want to dominate African Americans, they want to dominate all people partially because of their power. But by turning the less desirable Caucasians, so to speak, the less important Caucasians, into believing that they're better than the best black man, as Lyndon B. Johnson said once, that they could pick their pockets. They could take anything away from these poor whites if we can just get them to think that they're better than the poorest the best black man. Because their focus is then upon racism, not upon what the elites are doing. There are other whites out there who will only go so far. They don't mind some racism, but they won't call it that. But they just don't want too much of it. It makes them feel uncomfortable. And then there's others who just simply deny everything and do what they're doing. And, they don't hate black people, but they just simply go on and vote where they want to. They've been programmed by our society From the time we go to school to the time we become adult, we're programmed how to think in this country. And if you don't question it, you'll be a racist. Absolutely. Without question. Because this country produces racist people through our education system. Our education system is designed to indoctrinate people. That's why they don't want anything to come close to studying about other people, to understand other people. So my mind's gone blank on the program I'm trying to think of, but they don't want anything to interfere with what's going on, like critical race theory. That's what I was trying to think of. They don't want anything like that because it talks about the truth. They don't want people to know the truth. They want to continue the lies that have been there. You see, Jim Crow was a system after slavery where there was too many black people around. And so you had to discount them, take away their power. That's also where the loophole in the 13th Amendment that barred slavery of any kind, except in areas where a person is put in prison. And since we've got an overwhelming amount of people in prison, that's where the problem begins. I've got one other thing I'm going to show real quick, and then we got some other videos. So look at this picture here. Pedro, Texas pastor. So can't say the word on YouTube so much, but is with S abuse or M. Free after 6 months in jail. 6 months. And he hurt a 12-year-old girl. And he's an evangelical pastor. Tells you something there. While Henry Walter Wooden from Smith County in Texas is serving 35 years in prison for marijuana possession. Of course, he looks the part, doesn't he? What we like to say is a hardened criminal. Now, I don't think marijuana is a good thing. I guess there's some things for medical purposes and stuff like that. But I also don't believe in our justice system. I think that the way that it's simply being used to put people in prison. And so you've got somebody who actually goes out and hurts a child, abuses a child, and they're out in 6 months. Well, this man is supposed to get 35 years in prison for possession of marijuana. Now, I would say that if he is a drug dealer, okay, maybe, or longer, but I don't know about 35 years. If the drug influenced him in driving and he killed somebody by hitting them, maybe. But just for possession. Why? Because of the color of his skin. That's what this country does. That's what Texas and southern states do. We have to face it. That's what it's all about. That's what it's about, folks. And this is in 2026. So it's not over, folks. Stop saying it's over. Stop making excuses. Stop trying to prove a point that all it does is make you look ignorant, except for other people who are around you who are just as ignorant. So here we go. We talked about the prison situation. So see, all these things have been by design, by those people who want to seek power, those people who want to be in control. And as long as people don't stand up for things, it doesn't change. Really, things in this country have only changed slightly. I mean, it's a lot better than it was in the 60s up until now, and things are getting much worse. But that doesn't mean that we've gotten where we are. People are still being killed in the streets. People, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the names go on and on. They're still being killed either by police or they're being killed by people on the street, all because of racism. Now, when will you get it, folks? And the thing is, do you feel anything in your heart? Or are you cold? I mean, do you really think about other people? Or do you think it's all about yourself? I'm around people all the time, and it doesn't matter what a person looks like. Some people are just focused on what they want, and they didn't even consider, like people use their cell phones and have it on speakerphone to run everybody. They didn't even consider other people's, that they want to hear it or not. It's just about them. I mean, these are small things. But do you think the big things come from come just as big things? It's an attitude that we have started from small things. If we don't think about other people, if we don't have respect for other people, I mean, this country was built on greed and selfishness. It was built on power. It was built on the abuse of slavery, about taking the land from the Native Americans. That's what it was built on. That's what it was built on. And we as human beings in general have all struggled with the fact of selfishness and greed. We have to look outside of ourselves if we want to come with a solution. I believe we have to look towards God. But even if you don't believe in God, you still have to look outside yourself to consider things outside of who you are if you want to do something different. Because really, connections with people and love between people is what this whole thing is about. Nothing else matters. But you can continue to be one of those people who abuse and hurt other people or follow along with the group because it's the easiest thing for you to do. And really, it will come around to bite you as well, because what you help this country screw African Americans and Native Americans and even this thing about illegal immigrants, which there's all kinds of lies out there to make you believe those things, and you're gullible enough to fall for it because you let them control your mind instead of you thinking for yourself. I've seen a lot of people who they're in control by the narrative. They don't try to understand the narrative. They let the narrative control them. Instead, we need to rise up and be together. No matter what we look like, no matter who we are, we need to love each other and care for each other and build a country that matters. Now, will we get rid of racism in this country? I know I won't be alive. But I don't know that we ever will completely. But we certainly can make strides towards diminishing it, towards making a country that functions better, and making sure that the racists don't have the power that they've had, that they become the more minority group. That's possible, I believe. But human beings will always have some problems. But that's no reason not to try to change and be better. Now, I've got a couple more videos I'm going to play. We're looking at the past and we're looking at the history. The second one is one about the KKK. And these are men openly using the N-word. I don't agree with using the N-word, but this is history. This is what they did. This is what they say. And this is what people still say, perhaps not as openly as they used to, but they still use it to degrade people. So before I put this video out there, I want to understand that I don't approve of this, but this is who they are.
Negro leaders from the north invaded the town and staged a massive voter registration campaign against the blank walls of white supremacy and opponents like Sheriff Jim Clark.
Well, just a minute here. Do you mean by this document, Sheriff, that you're saying that you break Judge Thomas's order?
What is your name?
My name is C.T. Vivian. We ask, O Lord, your blessings upon us and your safekeeping of us as we go into jails that have misused us, as we go into jails where men have been beaten, where the waters has been placed upon floors where there has been no heat. Keep us, Lord, as we go. Keep us from illness. Keep us from the brutality of this official. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
You're under arrest for contempt of court.
Is what I'm saying true? Yeah. Is it what you think and what you believe? Yeah. What you're really trying to do is intimidate these people by making them stand in the rain, keep them from registering to vote. And this is the kind of violation of the Constitution, the violation of the court order, the violation of decent citizenship. You can turn your back on me, but you cannot turn your back upon the idea of justice. You can turn your back now and you can keep the club in your hand, but you cannot beat down justice. And we will register to vote because as citizens of these United States, we have the right to do it.
I'm looking down the line, seeing all the people who've been in jail for felonies. That's what I'm looking at.
Precisely right. And if they're not fit to vote, you'll be able to find that out. But you'll not know it until they're on the registrar. And many of those have a felony action because Sheriff Clark made them a felony action, not because they were rightfully refused.
I think the nigger has rights in this country. He should have equal rights, but separate rights. It's worked for 100 years in the South, and I think it will work now. But if you was the nicest fella in the world and Lyndon Johnson said I had to associate with you every day, I'd tell Lyndon Johnson to go straight to hell because I would not associate with you.
I read in my history books that the nigger man, the nigger race, was an inferior race. And that was a history that was taught me when I was in school.
No.
That hadn't been too long ago.
They always have been, they always will be.
Well, where do you think the money is coming from behind the civil rights movement?
From the Communist Party, from the Zionist Christ-killing Jews. And I say Christ-killing Jews because they have not been a flood since they crucified Christ, and their relatives can be traced back to the ones that's running the streets today.
Why did you join the Klan?
Well, I've got a wife, 5 kids. I think that's enough reason. I want them to have a country to be raised up in like I was. I wasn't forced to go to school with niggers. I wasn't forced to eat with them. And I want them to have at least the right that I had. I don't hate niggers, man. I don't associate with niggers, but on the other hand, I don't associate with common white trash or Jews or Catholics, if I can help it.
Right.
Everybody in this country is organized with the exception of the white Protestant Gentile. Your niggers have your NAACP and CORE along with your sorry white trash. But the white Protestant Gentile, the only hope and the only salvation that they have left in this United States today is the United Klans of America Incorporated. We saved the South twice, or the Klan has, and it looks like we just have to do it again. Let me say this. We have never had a drop of blood spilled between a white man and a black one in any town in North Carolina that we had the Klan organized. And we are doing our best to keep down trouble.
In the group are the 3 defendants indicted for the killing of Mrs. Liuzzo: Eugene Thomas,
Security about Mr. Murray.
William Eaton,
I don't have a one-member.
and Collie Leroy Wilkins.
The
Klansman pulled next to Liuzzo's car and shot at her. Viola was struck in the head and died instantly, causing her car to leave the road and come to rest near a fence. One of the Klansmen was actually a paid FBI informant who contacted his superiors shortly after the shooting to report what happened. The morning after Liuzzo was murdered, all 4 Klansmen were arrested. An all-white jury acquitted Wilkins, Eaton, and Thomas of the state murder charges. But the federal jury convicted the 3 of depriving Liuzzo of her civil rights, sentencing each of them to 10 years in prison, which was the maximum penalty. Following Viola Liuzzo's death, President Lyndon Johnson ordered an investigation of the KKK and petitioned Congress to make it legal to file federal murder charges against killers of civil rights workers.
I'm asking and directing Attorney General Katzenbach to proceed at the earliest possible date to develop legislation that will bring the activities of the Klan under effective control of the law.
Did you know Kentucky didn't just segregate black communities? It legally designed systems to punish them afterward. In city after city, when black neighborhoods were destroyed, the people didn't disappear. They were displaced. And then the system followed them. Police patrols increased where black families were forced to move. Courts became harsher. Juries stayed all white. Hospitals stayed segregated. Schools disciplined black students at higher rates for the same behavior. This wasn't accidental. It was structural. When Louisville shut down public pools instead of integrating them, black kids didn't suddenly become delinquents. When highways cut through black neighborhoods, crime didn't magically rise. Opportunity collapsed. When hospitals segregated care, survival itself became unequal. Kentucky didn't just erase black communities, it criminalized the aftermath. And when people ask why the system still looks the way it does today, this is the part they never want to talk about. Tell me this. If a state destroys your community, then polices the damage it caused. Who is really responsible?
So in 1965, Selma, voter suppression, beating people down, doing everything they can to discourage people to vote. Today, perhaps we're not at the point where they're going to beat people down at the voter box yet, but we are still trying to do everything to discourage people from voting. We put people in prison so they lose their ability to vote. We gerrymander and break up black communities. So it makes it harder for them to vote, because we know we create communities where only African Americans live many times, or at least the bulk of them, to keep them where we want them, so to speak, because that's what this country does. And so now they can sit here and break up black communities. We have a racist Supreme Court, and so they support these things happening in many ways. And then we've also looked at the KKK and their thoughts on the time. Of course, they said they didn't really hurt anybody, which is a lie, because they have been responsible for so many murders, so many lynchings, so much terror and pain. And then also looking at how things in Kentucky, what happened. And now look at the thing is, Kentucky has changed some, but not that much. We've talked about the University of Louisville. The University of Louisville being a racist institution. It follows the letter of the law, but it won't go beyond that. If the law becomes more racist, they're certainly going to be more racist. They're not going to do anything that the law doesn't force them to do. Also, we look at the idea that Louisville has remained segregated. Louisville is a very racist, separated area. Of course, they hide their racism under the table. John Marshall was an institute where they tried to come up against him because of the things he said, and they tried to get him resigned, which is a form of buck breaking. You'd have to go back and see one of my videos on that. I don't have time for all of it today, but so it just goes on and on. But when will you, as a human being, stand up? We're going to look at one more video, and then we're going to conclude.
But on the issue of race, on the treatment of African Americans specifically, even being terrible at what they're doing has still proven to be disastrous for our country. And it is, in part, the posturing from the White House and the president. That is stuff that validates and excites the worst bigots in the country, and that is consequential. But it's more than that, too. We are now about 16 months into what has been from day one a concerted and intense targeting of Black Americans, specifically by this president and by this administration. On his first full day in office, he proclaims war on diversity efforts, not only in government, but in any institution in the country over which he can exert leverage, everything from schools and universities to law firms to private businesses of every stripe. He then immediately started firing some of the highest profile Black public officials in the whole U.S. government, seemingly regardless of any other thing about them. I mean, right away, we get the firing of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Charles C.Q. Brown. We get the firing of the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden. And then it's Gwen Wilcox from the National Labor Relations Board. And then it's Robert Primus, the chair of the Surface Transportation Board. And then it's Alvin Brown from the NTSB. And then it's Peggy Carr, the head of the National Center for Education Statistics. And then it's Willie Phillips from FERC, from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And then it's Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, and on and on and on. When Trump and his top political donor, Elon Musk, then started just lopping off huge swaths of the federal government to disastrous practical effect, the largest and most egregious cuts targeted federal agencies that employed a disproportionate number of Black employees. Reporter Erica Green wrote about this a few months ago for The Times, noting that nothing had moved backwards in the federal government for Black Americans this quickly or this far in over 100 years. Since Woodrow Wilson came in 1912 and resegregated the federal workforce. Quote, Black employees were fired or demoted to lower level jobs, relegated to separate and inferior lunchrooms and other facilities, and accused of making white women feel unsafe. Those who remained were humiliated. A Black worker in the Postal Service was surrounded by screens so white workers would not have to look at him. Another employee had a cage built around him to separate him from his white counterparts. A clerk in the Treasury Secretary's office was assigned to rewrite all correspondence to address Black employees by their first names. The way Trump addressed the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, by her first name when he crowed publicly about firing her for no reason. In the year of our Lord, 2025, and now 2026, this president and this administration is not just inheriting that history from the Wilson administration, it's furthering it in its own ways. Since 1965, there has been an executive order in effect. It was signed by Lyndon Johnson, 1965. Since 1965, all federal contractors have been banned by executive order from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or national origin. Donald Trump rescinded that 1965 rule on his first full day in office.
Here we are with Rachel Maddow, and she's talking about Jim Crow 2.0, talking about how the Trump administration has gone through with firing African Americans, has targeted agencies. And so you see, again, it's not over. Quit saying it's over. I mean, otherwise you're going to be looked at as that really revolting, racist person who continues to support this nation. And in many ways, you're hurting yourself. I know of a few people, one person has gone through all different things with her family, and she still supports a man who is hurting her for the lack of health care and everything else. But she's not going to change. She's wrapped up in all this stuff. She doesn't really look into it. She just kind of goes along with what she's been programmed to believe, and it won't change for her. So, what are you going to do? Are you just going to go along with the flow? Are you just one of those people who just want to go back to pre-Trump? If you're a Caucasian person, or even if you're an African American, because some voted for Trump as well. And are you fooled by Christian nationalism to thinking that is Christianity when it's not? We need to really look towards the future where all people are together. All people work together for the common good. And yes, there are going to be some behaviors of people who you don't like because it doesn't sit in with your religion. And I'm not talking about between African Americans or Caucasians and Native Americans. I'm just talking about some things you can disagree with. Well, realize that God gives everybody a choice, whether you agree with it or not. You can teach, but this country is not a Christian nation, nor should it be, because there's no way it can be. Look at Israel, who failed God many times. Individuals pleased God. Israel at times pleased God. Then it fell away. The church is not part of an earthly institution. It is a spiritual realm. We are supposed to be amongst all nations of the world, teaching the gospel. When the church tries to become part of the earthly or secular brand, they usually end up being a power struggle, because they try to use the power of a nation to impose an idea. Because really what it is about their own power and greed. It's not about Christianity. Now, you can influence the world by being a politician who has Christian faith, but the country is about all people, whether you like what they do or not. We should be looking for the justice of all people, and then we should teach about God in the churches and to individuals who want to listen. And if not, move on to somebody else who wants to listen. Show love and compassion towards other people. And start waking up and realizing that this country is just as racist as it's always been. There are some individuals who are doing better, some individuals who are doing right. But look at how many people in this country. When I say racist has always been, I don't mean that there's not more people standing up for what's right. But there are still a huge number of people who are locked in this country into racism. A large number of people who look like me are wrapped up in this country's racism, either actively supporting racism and making laws and things, or supporting people who make laws against to discriminate, or simply going along with the flow because you don't really have enough motivation to care. When are you going to do something different? When are you going to be something different? I hope, even if I only touch 10 people out there, I'll go for one, but I'd like at least 10, maybe more, of people who say, I'm going to stand up for what's right. I'm not going to let history come back, because it's on its way, folks. Voter suppression and other things, firing African Americans, it all comes back. When will we have certain drinking fountains? We'll have this and that. Now, I think there's a lot more African Americans who are more educated today that are going to stand and not let push back on that happening. But when are you going to support that, to push back on it? Because I'm going to tell you, they're going to do whatever they can to make it as racistly segregated and separated and take away opportunities from African Americans and all non-whites as they can. They clearly want a white country, and they're afraid of the fact that whites are losing groundwork in population. They're going to fight with blood if necessary. If you don't know that, you don't know history, and you don't know the nature of the beast of this country. Again, there are good people in this country. There are people who are unaware and uneducated. Where are you? And what kind of person do you want to be? Hopefully, you want to be a little bit better. Then do it. Make those choices. Be that different person. Don't think about the color of your skin. Think about what's right in your heart and who you are. This is not important. Everybody's skin is to protect their body from diseases and everything else. And people like me need to use a little more suntan lotion than somebody else. We all need to use it. We're all vulnerable to certain aspects of the sun that can damage the skin. But people who look like me are more vulnerable to it. But we're not better. We're not worse either. We're human beings. Until the next time on American Christian or Christian American.